So thanks again to all of you who voted today. The topic that you picked was sequences and series. So I have chosen 2014 paper 1 question 6 as a good example of the kind of questions that can come up in sequences and series. And I've included here on this first page what's out of page 22 of your formula and tables book. So the formulas you need to know for arithmetic sequences and for geometric sequences. So if you have any questions, you can ask me at the end on Teams, or you can comment underneath the video here. Again, what I'd recommend you do is open up the question in your exam papers and try and do it as we're going along with the video. So stop the video, answer the question, then check your answer. So we are told that it's an arithmetic sequence that we're talking about here. So we're going to always be using the formula that are specific to arithmetic sequences on page 22. An arithmetic sequence is where you're adding the same value each time to the term, whereas a geometric, you're multiplying by the same ratio each time. So they've given us the formula Tn equals 15 minus 2n. That means that for any term, we can substitute in the number of that term for n, and we'll get the value of that term. So they said to find the first 3 terms of the sequence. So that means we're going to try and find T1, T2, and T3. So as you can see, I've put 1 there instead of n. So that means in the formula, I am going to write 1 instead of n. So I'm going to 15 minus 2 by 1, which is 15 minus 2, which is 13. In the next sequence, I have 15 minus 2 by 2, which is 15 minus 4, which is equal to 11. And T3 then is 15 minus 2 by 3, which is 15 minus 6, which is 9. And I know this is an arithmetic sequence because I can see that I am adding the same amount each time. I'm adding minus 2 each time. So it gives me a hint that I'm kind of going in the right direction. So there was 10 marks for this part, which was fairly generous. You can give yourself 10 marks out of the 25 there. Again, if it's a 25 mark question, you should be spending about 12.5 minutes. Remember, divide the number of marks in 2. So somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes will be loads for this question. So we defined the first negative term of the sequence. So if we go back and remember our sequence, it is Tn equals 15 minus 2n. So what value is going to be the first negative value? You could see from the first 3 terms that it's going down. So when is it actually going to go from positive to negative? Now you could try it by trial and error. You could just keep substituting in values and you'll eventually figure out which one gives you a minus. But we're going to solve it algebraically. So Tn equals 15 minus 2n. When is 15 going to be less than 2n? That is when n is going to be a negative number. Now you might be able to see from this clearly what value would give you a negative number on the side of the 2n, but we're just going to solve it algebraically anyway. So 15 over 2 is less than n. That's 7.5 is less than n. So what's the next value after 7.5? The next term we could have the sequence. It is the 8th term. T8. I can check because T8 equals 15 minus 2 by 8, which is 15 minus 16 equals minus 1. It's the first negative value. This was worth 5 marks, so already you could have pretty much passed your question if you have answered A, part 1 and 2 correctly. We're going to move on now to part B. This is a question that comes up really often where you're asked the sum of the first n terms, which means you're going to use the sum formula for an arithmetic sequence. So you have to have a look at page 22 of your tables again and get that formula, the sum formula. Sometimes it may not mention the word sum, it might ask you for the total or for addition or something like that, and you have to realize that you're talking about the sum. This quite often comes up, especially when you have sequences with what's the total number of tiles required or something like that. So if we have a look in the maths tables and get the sum formula. So I've written down the formula there, Sn equals n over 2 multiplied by 2a plus n minus 1 by d. So in this, we need to find out what a and d are. So a is the first term, which we found in the first part of the question was 13. And d is the common difference. And if you look at terms 1, 2, and 3, the difference between them is minus 2. So we have to substitute in those values. So Sn equals n over 2 by 2 by 13 plus n minus 1 by minus 2. Now, we don't need to sub in for n because we wanted to find it out in terms of n. So if you put that into your calculator or you simplify, what you will get is Sn So I've continued there to simplify down each time, and what I finally end up with is Sn equals 14n minus n squared. And that was worth 5 marks in the marking scheme. And you would have got lots of marks even for just writing your formula. So always, even if you're not sure what to do in the question, if you see something that you recognize that would have a formula, go to your formula and tables book and write it down. In the final part of the question, you're asked to find the value of n for which the sum of the first n terms of the series is equal to 0. So we're going to put our 14n minus n squared equals 0. And it's a quadratic equal to 0, so we're going to factorize it. So n multiplied by 14 minus n equals 0. So if we split that up, n equals 0. And 14 minus n equals 0, minus n equals minus 14, n is equal to 14. So we have two values here. The n equal to 0 doesn't make any sense because we can't have a 0th term, so we delete that one. So we're looking at that being the 14th term of the series. The sum of the first 14 terms will be equal to 0. That means if you were to add together the first 14 terms, you would get 0. And you can even check by trial and error if you want to. Again, there was 5 marks for this question. And if you made any attempt at it, you probably would have got 2 to 3 marks. So remember, always try each part of the question, don't leave any blanks. And I'll remind you again, if you have any questions, please make sure you ask.